Hello, everyone. My name is Colin Goldberg, and welcome to the Techspressionist Salon number 70. Today is Wednesday, May 24th, 2023, and today's topic is learning through making, which was suggested by an artist here that is in the Zoom, Lee Schnaiberg. So without further ado, let's see, he's just joining in here. There he is. Oh, I saw you adding yourself as on the other device. Okay, so without further ado, I will introduce Lee. If you could just let us know where you're zooming in from.
Oh, well, hi, everybody. I'm zooming in from Montreal, Canada, and it's Lee. And I'm glad to be able to be a part of this Techspressionism number 70. So that's pretty cool. Well, I think we have sort of two themes today, or maybe like two half of themes. Because last week it sort of became, it was a mixture. Like I suggested epistemology, and then Patrick said, well, what about learning by doing? And I think they're kind of related. What I was thinking about epistemology is sort of how we know things, not necessarily how we know something's true or false, but how we even know things. And that's a kind of a philosophical thing, but I was like, well, a lot of our work might address this kind of a question. And so there's either that or learning by doing. And both of them are really important. I know that for my personal experiences working with technologies in the arts, often there's a learning process, and a lot of it is, well, for me, because I always deal with like analog and digital together and the balance between them, I have a lot of physical, like gestural experiences, and I'll learn that, oh, the technology doesn't want you to, in the Rogue Pano world, they have this expression called getting dinged when you're making a sort of a wiggly panorama, and all of a sudden the algorithm says, no, you can't do that. And it goes ding, and you get shut off. So then you learn, well, how do I move so that that doesn't happen? And so learning by doing is something that definitely for me, it happens on a physical level, but I'm sure even if you're just dealing with data mosh or with any of the softwares or even the AIs, especially, you learn with your prompts as you're doing it. So that's one big thing. And I really hope that we can also touch on the topic of how we even know things. Like not just how do we know a fact, but how do we know? What about knowing? Is that something? But maybe learning by doing might be an easier topic. So I don't know how do we do this. Is there like people raise hands and then the mod says your hand is raised?
Yeah, generally, I would encourage anyone that's interested in sharing to raise their hand digitally by going under the reactions icon in the bottom of the Zoom window, or it's the main window. We're all sort of Brady Bunch, and then under there, there's a raise hand bar. So that'll kind of determine the order in which people present. And I would really encourage anybody that is willing to share work, even if it's sort of tangentially related to this topic, because really the sharing of work, I think, is primary to this experience, and also for any viewers of the recording to get to know each one of us as artists. So without further ado, you should be able to see them showing up in orderly.
Oh, I see.
At the top of your window.
Susan, Lee, and Cristina. Oh, great. Okay, well, Susan, I'd love to hear from you. So please take the stage.
Okay, I'm going to lower my hand. So when I heard the topic,
and if you could just introduce yourself,
yes,
and where you're zooming in from to start, that'd be great.
Thanks for the reminder. I always forget. Not everybody knows who I am. I'm coming to you from Eugene, Oregon. It's a very beautiful day here today, late spring. I also have been out in the garden, so my hair is so awry, but I'm a digital artist, digital and hard copy artist. And when I heard the topic, I thought that one of the most, in the last few years, one of the most current ways that I have learned by doing was learning to use video editing tools. And I started thinking about this because that was a tool I hadn't done that much. I wanted to have more light on my face. I hadn't done that much work with video tools before the pandemic. And maybe I played around a little bit with iMovie, and I think I tried to use Video Leap a bit, but I didn't really have much of a skill base. So I took some editing classes online during the pandemic through a group called Artist Relief. But really, I mean, you can learn those tools, but really what pushed me forward was the fact that when the pandemic started, I had the presence of mind. I've not done this before, but I had the presence of mind for when the lockdown started. I started a video diary. It occurred to me, I was out walking. I thought, I'm going to start a video diary. So I did a video diary for 90 days. And that's kind of when my journey on using video and starting to make things started with video. So from that, I ended up applying and getting a commission to create a movie, a 49-minute movie. And anyway, I want to do some screen sharing now. Okay. Most of the work that I am doing is on my YouTube channel. And oops, no, I didn't mean to do that. Okay. So I decided I would I have a playlist called Art in a Pandemic, where I made a number of pieces, but the best place actually to see them for what we're talking about today is, where is it? Oh, here we go. So during the, I'm not going to play this whole thing, but I'm just going to show a little bit of this movie.
Day two.
Oops.
I'm walking the alleys. Normally very,
Are you
very
hearing
busy
it?
street is not so busy.
Okay.
Felt pretty scared.
So
and
I
now
used
I'm
my
gonna take-
iPhone, and
in the beginning,
as I said, I created
wanna
a
do a lot
90
more than just
90
this
days
clip.
of journaling.
Walking was
And
good. And doing the little
it was
videos.
one of the more prescient things that I did in my life, which was to have, and maybe other people understood this,
Well, the end
to
of
have
B3,
an awareness that something was
there's
about to happen really big,
lights
and that
on my
I should start
porch
recording this event.
and
So
my
I did
street
that.
lamp.
And in June of 2020, I applied and got a commission and created this, see, I'm counting, I'm showing, I'm counting.
March. What's the
I
date
created a
today?
49-minute
I think
film.
it's the
It's kind of
16th.
long, but it goes through
Okay.
those 90 days. I may have skipped a few, but and I taught myself, I hadn't yet learned, hadn't taken any classes. I
feel
hadn't,
less
I
afraid
taught
at
myself
this
some
moment.
about iMovie. And I believe I made all of this in
So I'm coming
iMovie.
to you
I literally
during
did
the
not
daylight
know how to
hours
use
today,
iMovie, and I found it
on day 5.
difficult and challenging. I stayed up a number of nights with this dang movie. Anyway,
Day
so that
6
happened, and it played
of
uh,
isolating, social
online
distancing.
through a
My
platform,
hair. I usually get
the
a
commission
haircut, and I'm
platform.
not sure what I'm gonna
What was it?
do.
I can't
So
remember the name right now.
I could do nothing.
It also
Just let things grow.
was selected for the local Eugene Mayor's art show and played there for a long period of time. And so then at the same time, I want to get out of here.
Today was
At the same time, let's get back in my playlists again. At the same time, I was making movies, short movies. This may be the wrong, it's the wrong. I was making short movies that I called the Corona Diaries. And those I did on iPhone. Where's one I like? Where's the hair? I did one about a haircut, about having a haircut. And again, I was just starting to learn how to use CapCut and VN, which is the classes that I took. And I was pretty fascinated with
I can see there's
learning how to
kind of a jaggedy line
do
right
video.
there.
So that led, so after I'd taken some of the classes, I got more adventurous and started pushing the boundaries a bit more and looking back in time and using my Portrait of a Woman series that I've done for 7 years and using those pieces. And I made some more, I made some pieces that I submitted, but were not, this is a piece I made with poetry.
A possessed witch, haunting
I
the
submitted
black
this
air,
piece
braver
and
at
some other
night,
pieces to a
dreaming
show.
evil. I
a
have
couple
done my
shows
hitch over
that
the
were
plain
not-
houses,
They were
light
not,
by
my
light,
pieces weren't selected.
lonely thing, 12-fingered
But I
out of
still really
mind.
like these
A
pieces.
woman
of
like
course.
that is not a woman,
And,
quite. I have been her kind.
I'll let that one fit. I can't remember how long that is.
I have found the warm caves in the woods, filled them with skillets, carvings, shelves, closets, silks, innumerable goods. Fixed the suppers for the worms and the elves,
So I just kept making
rearranging
things
disaligned. A woman like
and
that is
trying
misunderstood.
new
I have
ways
been
of
her
combining my photography and video at the same time.
I have ridden in your cart,
And that
driver, waved
led
my nude
to,
arms at villages going
that.
by,
That led
learning the last
to
bright route.
actually led into my NFT work, which I wanted to, whoops, oh, that's not what I want. I'm gonna have to search. I thought I had it brought up. So this work was a direct result of, I don't know why it won't come up. Oh, I think I'm not in that, but anyway, I think people have seen some of my moving rose pieces that are NFTs. I'm gonna get out of that, but then again, lately the last two things I wanted to share were that lately I again was motivated here. I'm gonna do this one. This is a film. So I'm gonna start. So that film, I'm happy to tell you, was selected for a bike film festival and played last weekend, and I was awarded. I was a prize winner, which was really fun. I don't think I've ever been awarded cash money for a video, but that happened last weekend. And I was very excited about it. And I really liked that film. That film I had made a earlier version of, and I again tried to do, I did something I hadn't done before. I just started mixing things in a way that I'd not ever learned how to do, pressing on the buttons. And so then I'm gonna, I don't know how long I've been talking, but this is a film that I just finished that's pretty short that I'm gonna show. Okie dokie, thank you. So, oh, okay. I think I felt like it fit the idea because I did take some classes, but I just kept trying to do things, and because I'm essentially an experimentalist in my digital work. I like experimenting with the different sections and mixing things together. And both of those films I showed at the end were actually revamped from earlier, shorter versions that I expanded and added things back to. And of course, I have to say, having been selected and won in a film festival, gave me a lot of impetus to, I thought, oh, I think I want to do more of this, because it felt really great to have that happen. So thank you. I appreciate everyone watching and hope that was all understandable. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Susan. I have a question. I've never used iMovie. I played around with DaVinci and Avid and all those things, but I never realized that you can do. Maybe it's more straight ahead, but you do a lot of pre-production. That's what I'm wondering, if your images are treated before you get in there.
On the longer, the 49-minute movie, some of them were edited ahead of time and some were brought in. I think iMovie is not, it's a drag and drop program, but really I think it's more tedious, and at the same time it's more restrictive. It doesn't have the potential of like CapCut and the VN and Motion Leap. All of those have a lot of filters and options, and iMovie is really kind of sort of restricted. So sometimes I'll put something in iMovie and pull it out and then put it into another editor. So I go from editor to editor. I do something here and then I stick it in another editor and then I put it in another one. But yes, a lot of my work is still or video that's been altered before it's put in the video. Yes.
Yeah, and then you just have to put a simple dissolve, because the images are so strong that you don't have to do like fancy post-production processing. That's already done in your arts. I am using particularly in CapCut, there's probably about, there's maybe 4 or 5 levels of different ways to transition. Like they have those editors have, since the time I took the classes in whatever year that was, 2020 and 2021, I took it twice. A number of features in those editors has grown astronomically. And that's also gone from a free program to a paid program. Now CapCut charges not a bunch, but they just started charging. But they have a multitude of possibilities for creating transitions, overlays, blending of overlays, many possibilities of how to edit and blend. I'm a layer kind of person, and I love the layering, and that particular editing tool has multiple ways to do layering, either within the film or it's set up like a grid sort of arrangement that you build, and you can see and you can tap into each of those layers and transition and move them around. It's all done with fingers. I'm not typing anything. It's all on my iPad, not the iMovies on my desktop, but an iMovie on iPad I don't like it. It doesn't do very much. I only do that on my desktop, but it's quite a deep and amazing tool. It kind of reminds me of iColorama, how many possible options there are. Wow.
So yeah, if you like to do videos, I recommend it.
I just subscribed to your YouTube page. I look forward to seeing more of your stuff for sure. So I don't know if I go from left to right or right to left, but I see 4 people's hands up. Michael, Lee, Cristina, and Renata. So do I go left to right or right to left?
I think Lee was next.
Lee's next. Originally he was, and now he's in the middle. But let's go with Lee, because I saw you next. Okay, please take the stage.
Okay, this will be very short. Some of you may recall that I've mentioned before that at this stage in my life, I cannot stand at my easel and paint for 3, 4, 5, 10 hours like I used to. I can stand maybe for 2 hours and paint, and then I have to sit down in this chair and I have to relax. But being an individual that I am, I can't just sit here. It just drives me crazy. And so I've been writing, and so far I've published 2 books. They're both murder mysteries based in the contemporary art community of Los Angeles. In book number 1, at the end, the main character is involved in a big fist fight and gun shootout. He's shot twice and beat up. And so when I started book 2, I thought, well, I'm just going to pick it up right at that same point. So this man would be perhaps suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. And I thought, what do I know about that? Well, I thought back to my many years, many decades actually, of teaching art at college. I had from time to time a number of soldiers who were in an endless variety of wars. And I ended up meeting a lot of art teachers who taught art therapy classes to those soldiers. And I was real curious about their content of these classes, you know. And they had the traditional things like painting and drawing. Those were very useful to them. But all of these teachers said the same thing to me, that the most successful course, and by successful, they meant the course that helped the soldier readjust to normal life, was ceramics, especially clay sculpture. When this was first detected, the scientists thought and the psychologists thought it had something to do with muscle memory. And the soldiers go through a lot of muscle memory training, how to load a gun in the dark and all of that kind of stuff. But it came down to the fact that the clay is malleable. You can push it. It responds instantly to what you are doing. And it's in 3 dimensions, which helps them approach the problem from all points of view as it turns on the table. And I thought that was quite fascinating about how making clay sculpture, regardless what the end product turned out looking like, how that process helped an individual readjust to normal everyday living within their community. That struck me as falling into your theme for this group.
Well, that's beautiful. And you know, it reminds me of this sculptor named Michael Marancho or Maranko. He got blinded in Vietnam, and when he got back and he was in the rehabilitation, he kept on asking them for clay, and he never did sculpture beforehand, and his pieces are beautiful. I only know them because of an environmental video I did with which featured Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he went on and on about the guy, and so that's why I don't really know if it's Maranko or Naranko. He shows in the Southwest, near where Sasha, I don't know if Sasha is here, but maybe she'll know the person's name. But that's a really cool thing, that it's not just this one fellow that I heard about, but that it's a real thing. And it makes total sense because you get to do it with your hands, and it's physical, and it's very, very exciting. I really look forward to reading your books, Lee.
I devoted almost an entire chapter to just that in the book.
Wow. Did you play around with clay when you were writing it? Like to, get into the tactile feelings?
I only taught ceramics once to fill in for somebody during the summer that had an emergency and had to walk away from the course. I had never taught ceramics. I taught sculpture, but not ceramics. And so I had all these young people in there, and I wasn't sure what the heck I was going to do with them. I certainly couldn't teach them how to throw a pot on a wheel. I didn't know how to do that. But I knew enough about sculpture and enough about clay that I could have them do clay sculpture. And one thing I noted right away is that as I was introducing an assignment and demonstrating some aspects of it, and then stepping back and waiting for them to start. They immediately went right into it and immediately started conversing with each other verbally about what they were doing, which is entirely different than teaching painting and drawing. Teaching painting and drawing, the students tend to turn inward.
Yeah.
They don't immediately start talking to somebody and say, look what I did here with this, and if you do that. No, they don't share that way. No, it becomes a very personal, intuitive kind of response that you're doing in painting and drawing. But in clay, because the person sitting right next to you on both sides can actually see exactly what you're doing and watch how you do it. And if they have a question about it, they can ask you while you're in the process of doing it. It becomes a very social activity. And I think that was one of the keys to bringing these soldiers back into the community, getting them to be social with one another in solving a problem, even if it was just a simple clay sculpture.
I think that it was on a PBS program about craft in America. There was the segment, they're long segments, at least an hour, where they focus on what they call craft in America. The segment was on all these different places where veterans were using art, were learning arts. And I believe there was a clay section, but I don't know. This is a kind of vague memory from a few months ago. And I also recommend that program, Craft in America. It's art, it's about art. It's about art. And there were a number of, it was mostly men, veterans, but there were a number of different hand crafting materials that were being used. And I believe that clay was one of them. You could probably Google it, but they're those segments are very well produced. Also, very nicely produced. You know, PBS, they do beautiful programming and photography and interviewing. So, recommendation.
That sounds like something to watch. I was going to say, Cristina. Oh, Christina's back, because Cristina is, I think, next to take the stage, please.
Okay, thank you. My name's Cristina Inciarte. I'm zooming in from Orlando. I'm a digital abstract artist. And when I saw today's topic, I immediately thought of how I have been learning this entire time by doing when using Adobe Fresco. That's the main program, digital software I use to create my paintings. And so I've been an artist for a long time, but I haven't been a digital artist for that long. So it's been, yeah, like literally a learning process the entire time. But especially for me, it's been about learning when I find a new tool, how that might, or a new brush, how that might, you know, look or come across, or, you know. So I just wanted to share some paintings where I felt you know, I had a lot of learning by doing experience. So basically this painting did not at all look like I thought it was going to turn out when I first started making it. But you know, as I was working with the new brushes that the program had recently published, I basically learned how to create this new effect. And originally when I created this painting, I did have this idea of like I don't know, like I was thinking of the Jaipur pottery, the beautiful blue pottery out in India. And I was thinking of tigers. I don't know, I really don't know why those two things kind of came to me. But anyway, by kind of playing around with the tool that I had, this newly published tool that they had put out in the program, I was able to create this effect. And I was really kind of pleased with how it came out. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to share that. And then this other painting I thought was also a good example of learning as I was going. I really like to use the splatter kind of effect when I create paintings. I don't know. I like it. And I remember it was like a big breakthrough moment for me learning how to use the splatter tool and how to kind of use it in a way like, kind of, I don't know, in a different way. As you can see, sorry, I'm not really explaining myself well. So these yellow splatters, I copied them in pink, and then I used another tool to kind of create this effect where kind of like a comet. Anyway, I thought for me that was very cool, and I've been enjoying as an artist kind of going along and having, I think Lee had once said something about these happy accidents that we can have as artists. So anyway, I have been going along in this kind of way of like learning, kind of to like use what I have or whatever is new, and just kind of going along. So anyway, I just wanted to briefly share that with you all, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Cristina. And I think we have to actually not ask questions until the end. And so anybody has questions, please save them and let's keep on going. And next we have Vytas.
Yes, that's correct.
Hi.
Yeah, let me share my, well, first a little bit of an intro. I'm zooming in from just outside of Sacramento, California, and this is my first salon, so I'm very happy to be here. I know some of you, and we're connected on Instagram. It's really nice to actually see you and hear you, although I've been secretly watching the salons on YouTube, so really exciting stuff, and really, again, very happy to be here. So myself, I'm a digital abstract painter, and I've been painting for quite a while. I've been painting since the early 70s. I date myself severely here. Seriously painting, going in exhibitions, etc. And traditionally, it was acrylic, pastel, charcoal, oil, on canvas, on wood, on all kinds of different substrates. Then in the 80s, I started exploring computer technology. My very first was a Toshiba CPM computer, and I used CBasic to generate the graphic imagery. It was so rudimentary. And then in the 90s, early 90s, I was living in Chicago at the time. That's where I was born, my hometown. I went to SIGGRAPH for the very first time, and I was blown away. The things I saw. I said, I have to get involved in this somehow. And lo and behold, I did. Eventually, I bought a package. My first 3D rendering package was called Renderize Live. And I started shaping things and making them and then rendering them out, sending them to a service bureau where I made Cibachrome prints from them. And I was all excited. It was, if you look back now and you go, wow, how pixelated and how antiquated, but it was the tech of the time. And as time went on, and it was all a learning process. And I think it maps to the fact that my degree is in biology. I have very little formal education in art. I took a few classes in college, painting and drawing, but it was by and large biology, chemistry, physics. I was a science geek. Now my life is actually split. Not only am I a painter, but I'm also a user experience designer. And two separate worlds, but each informs the other. And putting on the UX designer hat, we learn by doing. We think we know. I'm on my 8th startup now, and it's kind of exciting. You think you have an idea what a customer would want in their software application. You build it out, you test it, and you see immediately where you failed. And you pivot and you revise and you shape it. Same process or same principles I apply to my art world. It's like I try something, it doesn't work, but I do it. And the thing is, nobody's teaching me. I'm teaching myself. I'm stumbling. I'm looking at various sources. It's part of the process. It's part of the journey of crafting work. And it's a rush, quite truthfully. I get a thrill from doing it. To me, art is like breathing. I have to have it. It's not a hobby. It's part of who I am. So I'm going to share my screen now, and let's see here. It's this one, right? I've got too many screens, too many windows. Tell me when you see that.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, Vytas Gaizutis, that's my name. And I'm going to take you through some of my recent work. You might have seen some of you who've seen my work on Instagram might be familiar with this already, but I want to talk a little bit about it. I start out with an initial idea. Like I might have a color in mind, like, ooh, I want teal and I want some orange and I want some shapes of certain type. But then the learning by doing is, and the thing that's very liberating is the fact that in working with things like Procreate, which is my tool of choice, although I do use Adobe Fresco as well. So Cristina, I'm completely right there with you. I love their live brushes, by the way. You don't really know until you get in and start playing around. And here's a shot of the layers. And hopefully you're seeing the screen that just has one image on it, not my next slide thing. Let me know if you don't. But you see these layers, and I move the layers around. I build them up. I collapse them. I delete them. Oh, I don't like the way that's looking. And it's a constant iterative process where it's evolving over time, and I'm making adjustments. Sometimes I scrap. I might get 30 layers in, depending on how big I set up the canvas. If I usually try to set it up so that I can make a print out of it. Not that I always make prints. A lot of them end up being just NFTs, but I'd like to have that versatility, and I need the pixel power there to do it. So it might be 7,200 pixels square by 300 DPI. So you don't get very many layers, unfortunately. So I end up having to collapse layers and build new layers a bit at a time once I'm satisfied. And everything is malleable. And that's the thing. It's like happy accidents, like somebody said here before. It's just you learn, you adjust. It's may have a slight preconceived notion, but then I let it flow into, gee, this is interesting. This takes me into interesting. What if I did this? And I really need something that has a different texture or a different color. And that's how you end up with the results that you want. And these swooshes, for example, sometimes they're there. They're very frequently, it's a signature element of my work. And that harkens back to, back in the 80s, there was the abstract illusionist movement. Havard was one of the names, Gallagher is another name. And these people were creating these paintings, these abstract expressionist paintings, but they had paint droplets that appeared to float. They painted the shadows, the drop shadows. And I thought, wow, that's such an interesting take. And then the movement kind of died out over time. I feel like I had to resurrect it. I thought it was important to resurrect it and bring it back to life because I'm so enamored with it. I think giving these brushstrokes dimensionality, like they float over substrates, over like there's layers upon layers, which there are, but in the actual imagery itself, to make them pop and make them rise and make them recede and this nuance of color and form. I think that's what makes it kind of an exciting feeling work, and it kind of captivates the user viewing it. On this day, I was really enamored with green. I really wanted to do something that had some green, but I wanted something with a little hot color, so I threw in some pink to offset it. A big color theory guy. I love the fact that there's complementary colors and triadic, etc. And how does it play in? Sometimes I violate all those rules and do crazy things just because I feel like a rebel. But it's just, again, it's like piece after piece. It depends on my mood. I did a little bit of a glitchy type thing here, but I wanted to do something that's representative of a wing. Kind of like those little things that fall from the tree, the seedling that has that wingy element. And I wanted some translucency, and I wanted some lighter colors coming through. Again, all done in layers. This one is a little bit more dynamic, and it's just simple brushstrokes. There's not much here. It's amazing when you think, how can I make it simpler? Do I have too much here? Can I pull back? And I frequently end up debating whether or not I should even post something on Instagram or finish it off or just throw it in the trash can. And then I realized that it's not good to edit myself to that level. And I figure, hey, it's part of the process. I will stumble as much as anyone, put it out there in the world, show people that I'm trying, that I'm working on certain things. Whether I succeed or fail, that's life. That's part of the experience. Some of these are happier, like I'm very pleased with the way this one turned out, because I just felt that it was a joyous combination of colors. This one's called A Deeper Thought. I should have given you the names as I was going along. I do name these things. Some of the names don't have anything whatsoever to do with the work itself, other than the feeling that comes to mind when I looked at it at the time I named it. This one I called Cherished Moment. And this one had, you could tell, for those of you who know about the liquefy tool, I used the pinch, and I really pinched in on that because I had this really swirly kind of substrate thing going, and I wanted to see what would happen if I felt like I shriveled it like it was a cloth. And I'm quite pleased with the way this one turned out. It turned out to be very vibrant, and I was kind of happy with the result. This one received a lot of likes on Instagram, and I realized that the reason here, and my attempt here, I love things that have lacy, intricate textures to them. And you see this depth going beyond, what's beyond that, and what's beyond that. And that's one of the things I love about the layers. You can't do that easily in the material world, in the physical world. Even I've done it in the past, and you end up taking a cloth or a spatula and scraping away paint and sanding it down and trying again. And sometimes you get some really interesting effects that way, glazes and things. But you need a studio. I don't have a studio. My studio is my iPad, and I wanted to get that same effect. But here, there's this immediacy. I could fly quicker. I could put these layers together one after the other and throw them out or move them around and change them. Sometimes adjust the hue of one layer and adjust the hue of another layer, or resize it or whatever. There's the flexibility of the creative moment is there. And that's what I love about that. This one I just felt, it's called Chilled Promises, as the name suggests, because it's got a lot of icy types of effects. And it just kind of gives you that feeling of coldness. All my colors tend to be very vibrant. Back earlier in my career, I was using extremely muted colors. At one point in my life, in the mid to late 80s, I was using pastel, and all my colors were very gentle and wispy and subtle. So it's a change in me, and I'm not sure why. Maybe I explored the wispy, pastel-y type colors a little too long, and I wanted a change. And so now maybe I'll phase out of that and go back to the pastel-y. I don't know, but right now I'm kind of exploring the hotter colors. This one too has, I basically took some big brush strokes, and I figured, what can I do to make this look a little bit more interesting? And I use the erase tool, using brushes which have a texture on them, and just swap across it, creating the effect of these zones that open up and reveal things behind it. That gives the work a little bit more complexity, and it just makes it more interesting. Like, what is this mysterious object? And you may wonder why I put things on a black background rather than going wall to wall. I've done a share of the wall to wall paintings as well. I was inspired by seeing Dale Chihuly's website. I love his. When I lived in Seattle, I used to visit a lot of places that show Chihuly work. And on his website at the time, he had nothing but a black background and the object there front and center. And it felt like it was floating in space. And that resonated with me. And I thought, wow, I could make artwork like that. Why not just focus on the object as if it were an object, as if it were a bit of a sculptural object just sitting there. And it kind of stuck with me, and I've been kind of riding that along for a little while. This one's called Persistent Dream, The Brainstorm. One day I was working on a really tough UX problem, and working with my colleagues, brainstorming possibilities. And this kind of popped into my mind. It representative of that. There's all these ideas coming around, and nothing's formed yet. You're just throwing out a lot of rapid fire ideas, and there's some hot ideas and some cooler ideas, thus the pink and the blue cooling it off, and the orange, and a lot of motion, suggested motion, droplets, things spewing. It's like there's momentum, and to me that's what that represents. Here's another work. It's called Just a Thing. This is a bit earlier. This is part of the Alio Modo series. Alio Modo, Latin for in another way. This is interesting because this particular work, Alio Modo 69, is actually constructed from an acrylic on paper that I did. I took a photograph. You see the bluey leaf structures there. They were actually a different color, but I took a photo, brought it into Procreate, and manipulated the heck out of it and created some additional elements. And it morphed into a new creation as a result. And kind of pleased with the way it turned out. I think it has this energy and elemental sense of nature. The leafy brush, of course, is a bit of a cheat. It's a Procreate brush that's just there, but I use it frequently. You may have seen it in a lot of my works. I just love the way it manifests itself on works. It just feels like this release of leafy structures, and it just feels really nice. Maybe it's the biologist in me. And that's pretty much it.
Those are great and really inspiring, Vytas. Thank you so much for sharing. And I really like the what did you say is abstract
illusionism.
Illusionism. That's really cool. I'm gonna look into that.
But I'm considering myself a Techspressionist now. So it's like, that's my new life.
It's good to bring stuff from your other stuff that adds to your style. And moving forward though, we're going to Renata Janiszewska. Please take the stage.
Thank you, Lee. I'm zooming in from Lion's Head, which is on the northern Bruce Peninsula in the province of Ontario in Canada. And I enjoyed Vytas' presentation very much. I'm a Procreate fan myself. So I get lonely working in abstraction. And for the last Techspressionist Salon, I did a series of figurative works using the AI engine Midjourney. And they were in black and white because the topic was monochromes. But for this one, I chose to work in color using the same rough beginnings, but because video doesn't show well at all on Zoom, and I make animations as well as still works, and I make my own music to go with the animations. But over Zoom, it's just not a very good experience, and I'd rather show you stills. So what I tend to do is I have a lot of shapes that are on transparent backgrounds, and I have at least 5 different softwares for layering or introducing double exposures in different ways. So for example, this shape on the left of the face, it's kind of like a V shape that isn't at the same it doesn't have the same set of values about it as the drawing of the face. It has a kind of half-finished quality to it. And I think part of what is going on in these works is my attempt to blend very traditional Renaissance or Art Nouveau or Modigliani or any number of art historical types of faces with these abstract, very high tech, very, usually hot colors. Actually, I would say more glowing colors, not so much hot. So you can see how the mauves and the blues glow here. And the face on the right is actually the same face that you saw in the work before this. So with each successive work, I was trying to find new ways of masking or of bringing in the modern element to the more relatively traditional looking element. And I think that with Midjourney, it's very hit and miss. I was using the blend mode for all of these works and all of the ones that I did for the monochrome series. And then the blend mode broke on mobile, and I have most of my work on an iPad. So when I'm using Midjourney, I like to load my works directly from the iPad to the engine. But it broke, and instead of being able to put 4 or 5 works in at once, I could only put 2. But sometimes limitations are good, and I have made so many images using Midjourney while I was going through this series here that it's almost a blessing that I could only load 2 at once, because then I have a clearer memory or image of what worked and what didn't. In this case, I put the woman on the bottom. I just changed the orientation of the image, and then I layered in the abstract shapes. So I think that you can see the difference perhaps in how matte the colors are on these, as opposed to the ones where there's a backlit quality to them. This is another completely different kind of technique that I've used, where I wanted to layer upon layer, and it ended up reminding me of that portrait of Van Gogh, where he has the bandage around his whole face and underneath his chin when he cut off his ear. And the color palette is very similar to that as well, with the dark teal, navy, indigo, blue palette, and then the face being very pale. One of the things that I ask myself when I finish an image and I want to show it is, does it work? And in this case, it's a still from an animation. And fortunately, one of my animation softwares has a push button photograph mode. So it takes the picture for me as the image is flowing by. And then I can take 100 of them and find the ones that I like the best. So I'm also going to show you before and afters, just to show you the impact of adding an element to the face. So there's the before and there's the after. The dimensionality of those shapes, I think, works really well against the outlines of the face. And there's the before and the after. And it's kind of fun to dress these women up like they're paper dolls, and I'm giving them fabric, clothing, accessories, and so on. I don't usually use people in my work, but I know everybody likes to look at faces, and I'm learning about the kinds of limitations that Midjourney has right now, because it's not really fully developed. I use software to crisp up my images. If I think that they're not high res enough, I put them through. It's called Topaz, is the one that I use. And then this is another type of triple, quadruple exposure. Again, that's part of that series where you can see more than one face. And This is a glitch of an earlier work. I use all kinds of different softwares to get these effects, and I like to move them in and out of different, like this one went through at least 4 different softwares because I painted the lips and the eyebrows, and I made the background textured, and then I superimposed. And as I said, I often have to make them sharper, and I also light them. I have a good photo editing software on my MacBook Pro, and I like to really fine tune the lighting because that can make or break the image. And I'm going to close with a very brief animation of one of the images where it goes completely back to what it started from.
Those are beautiful, Renata. Absolutely beautiful pieces.
Thank you, Lee.
And I love the Renaissance and the Art Nouveau and the Modigliani. I mean, there's just so much in there. They're just beautiful, beautiful pieces. And of course, I have questions, but I'm going to save them until the end because rolling forward, we have Michael and Colin. And I think Michael, I don't know if you're after Colin or if Colin was before Michael. So the first one, oh, Colin raised his hand. Oh, okay, Michael, please.
Michael's first.
Michael, please take the stage.
All right, thanks, Lee. So what I want to show today is not finished work. I'm really focusing on primarily the learning by doing. And because of my physics background and my long time in the game industry, I'm very methodical. So my science background and my game industry background is you have to be very methodical because you're dealing with complex systems, et cetera, et cetera. So as a kid, and I'm still a kid at heart, but as a kid, I loved dinosaurs. I still love dinosaurs and fossils. So what I thought about actually was the beauty in fossil beds and the way they're created and such. And so what I did was I initially started with the idea of fossils as artwork. And so I used a combination of a little bit of a fractal program and then Mid-Journey. And so I just started off with something that looked somewhat artistic, but realism thrown in there a bit. And then, so these first couple are along those lines. And then I wanted to go, because I'm working on a project, a long-term book project that I'm working on. I wanted to start going a little bit more abstract. So how would I do that? So I thought adding color was my next step. So I started working on adding color to these fossil shapes and also playing with dimensions, aspect ratio and such. So these next couple were iterations, and I started abstracting it a little bit more and throwing a little bit more color in. But these are progressions along the way here. They're like children and grandchildren of the previous images and more offshoots from there. And then I wanted to go adding a little more dimensionality to bring out sort of the 3D quality to fossils and how you might see them. And again, upping the artistic side of the equation at the same time. So that's what some of these are. And then I started playing a little bit more of abstracting the shapes, but keeping the fossil-like quality of the imagery, like with the stone background. I've gone twice to the petrified forest, and it's a really, really beautiful place to go to. You see these fossilized trees that look like they were just alive the day before. They've been uncannily, protected over all these years by becoming stone fossils, and they're really beautiful. And then I started thinking about abstracting it more and more, but keeping the qualitative aspects to the shapes. And that's what some of these iterations are. Again, none of these are finalized images. These are all test images in this process of experimenting and learning by doing. And then I start to go even more abstract. And now I'm trying to do something very abstract, but hopefully the echoes of the fossils are still there. And if you didn't know that, you might not see any connection to fossils in these, but they're there because these are the offspring, basically, of the previous generations. And I think that's the final one.
Those are fantastic, Michael. Wow.
Thanks.
That was wonderful. Wow. And so much to ask you about that, but I guess, okay, we're going to wait till the afterwards. And next we have Colin Goldberg. Many of you don't know Colin. He's involved with Techspressionism.
Thank you, Lee. So yeah, I thought at first I was going to show some video work, but when Renata mentioned about the experience of video over Zoom, I thought, well, maybe I should pull something else out. So I ended up, let me just start sharing my screen here. So you guys see a desktop there? Okay, cool. So what I did was I pulled out a bunch of work on paper that starts in 2005 and goes through 2021. There's about eight or nine images here. So a lot of this, a lot of my work basically is learning through doing. And in 2005, I started running painted surfaces through my printer. And that was just, real experimentational work where I had like a 13 by 19 inch format, a Super B format Epson, which is I think an Epson 1280, and it was leaving these roller marks on the work. So what I did was I ended up kind of pulling the roller wheels out of the printer and kind of modifying it so I could run these painted surfaces through there. And this is an early one where I started with pastel and then painted over it with this metallic or opalescent glaze that's actually like a Benjamin Moore product for like trim painting. And what the latex did was it allowed the inkjet to really stick nicely to the surface and come up with a clean print. And it also was something that kind of functioned as a top coat onto the pastels, but I really like the opalescent or metallics because that's not something that I could actually print in any other way. And all these sort of wireframe forms are drawn in Illustrator. And these are pretty much all pieces from a series I called my wireframe series that are done by making these sort of gestural marks in Illustrator and rotating them in space and sort of pulling the forms apart. So this one is from 2006. And it's acrylic underpainting, or this was sort of further exploration of this idea of combining painting and digital printmaking, in which I painted, ran it through the printer, painted on top of it again, and printed it on top of again multiple times to sort of create a sense of space. This is a piece from graduate school. I took a printmaking class there in which I was able to have access to a dark room and burn some screens for screen printing. So this is the under, I guess the bottom layer is an inkjet print with this sort of gradient, and then the wireframe form is printed on it with screen printing in gold enamel. So I always enjoy the, the use of metallics or doing things with the printmaking piece that I couldn't do in any other way. So this one is moving forward to 2011. It's actually a pencil drawing, and this was kind of inspired by some of the work of Franz Klein, where I found out that his big black and white paintings were actually created through the use of a projector, in which he projected tiny little bits of charcoal drawings and then, used those as a basis for creating these paintings. So this was actually drawn in Illustrator, and I used a projector to, execute them in hand, in pencil. So this one here is skipping forward a little bit to 2015. This is a larger format piece. It's on a full sheet of watercolor paper, and then the image area is about 24 by 16. And I just sort of masked off the area and did this underpainting, which also has these sort of glazes and really kind of thinned out acrylics, but also continuing this multi-layered process. And a lot of this work is really what led me to developing this idea of Techspressionism, where I couldn't really feel that calling my work digital art really was a valid way of describing it, because a lot of it really are what I would consider paintings or work on paper, in which technology is a component, but not straight digital art. And I certainly do make my share of work that's screen based or animation, but the initial idea behind Techspressionism is work that sort of, the term digital art never completely sat well with me as far as describing some of my body of work. So this one here is India ink wash as an underpainting, and then sort of just a single layer of digital print on top of that. And I really like the use of negative space and kind of playing with the digital printmaking part of it. This is a fairly recent one from 2020. And this is actually after sort of the group started getting established. And it's oil and India ink. So the white is painted in with oil, and there's some underpainting as well in oils. And for the majority of the painted work, I actually use a top coat or a primer called Ink Aid. And if you guys haven't used it and you work in a multimedia way, I would really recommend getting yourself, a little sample or some jars of this Ink Aid product, which allows you to print onto virtually any type of surface. You could literally, put a top coat of Ink Aid onto aluminum foil and run it through your printer. I would recommend, taping it down to a carrier sheet just in case it gets crumpled up in there. But it's a great product. And then this is the last one. This is one of my first plotter drawings, and I recently, purchased an AxiDraw, which is a really great piece of hardware. I've been using that quite a bit, to do drawings with. And this is a pencil drawing created with the AxiDraw. And there was a little bit of, technical hurdle with trying to do pencil drawings with plotter. But I managed to find a self-advancing mechanical pencil that is manufactured in Japan. So that actually keeps the lead feeding through. That's how I was able to create this piece in particular, and doing a lot more with graphite. So so that's about it. I guess it relates through to this idea of learning through doing, because the work is it's an evolution of experimentation with process. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Colin. Those are really cool. And I wrote down in the chat Ink Aid, but I'm curious how to spell it and how to find it. Because I'd love to print
Yeah,
on
it's
other stuff.
Ink Aid, like INKAID.
Like Kool-Aid.
And they make a couple different products that are pretty cool. There's also another one called it's like Super Juice or something like that, but it's like something that you mix rubbing alcohol into, and it allows for transfers, pigment transfers. So you could put a coat of that onto like wood panels, and then they also sell a transparency product where you can print onto the transparency. You put this primer onto wood panels, and you can roll it down and burnish it, and then peel it away, and it actually will transfer the pigment, directly onto the surface. And I've done a bunch of work that way too. So there's all sorts of interesting, ways to incorporate digital media into physical work that I think is really interesting.
And you get the Figital,
Digital, yeah.
I don't know if we still have time for anybody, and if anybody, there's no hands. You have a hand up, Colin. If you wanted to talk again or show more.
Oh no, I forgot to lower mine, but we do have a little bit of time if anyone has any questions for any of the artists who've presented or anything like that. I guess we can go to I don't know, 7:05, because you usually start at 5 after.
If there's a minute or two, there's something I'd love to show. If that would be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And just anyone who wants to stay around after we stop the recording, that's usually when we have our after party / advisory board meeting. And anyone who's interested in, contributing ideas for the topic for the next salon, that's generally when we do it. So yeah, take it away.
Okay, so we're learning by doing. I have 3 little pictures, little photo showers here. I'm on a PC, so this one here, these ones are this is what I thought is learning by doing. So these are things that I did in 2019 when I first started realizing that I could do like kind of painting with my cell phone with the pano, and it was really kind of frenetic. There's some buildings and there's some stuff that makes it obviously a photo, but it was pretty wild. And a lot of time I'd shoot things like this, which weren't exactly what I was trying for, and I didn't really know how to control the camera. And then fast forward a couple of years, I learned a lot of ways to manipulate it. And one of the ways is really I got to showcase on my trip 2 weeks ago into the campground or into the national park. And this one in particular, I'm so proud of, because I really learned how to control. That waterfall was like 20 inches wide. And I was on my tiptoes and the ball of my feet, because one of the things I learned is that it's not just how you move a camera, but your whole body is part of the movement. And so often I even find myself like singing these little phrases as I'm doing the moves, like it goes ba-dum, 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 and like kind of getting it's a whole body thing. And then I didn't even get to see this until I got home and like finally looked at all these photos, and I was like, oh wow, okay, so this is, I learned by doing this with the camera that I could get shots like this, which I was pretty blown away by. And then just today, the last piece of what I wanted to show is what I've been learning with this is that I could really control, like this is brand new today, and it's a new series that I've been working on. I'm calling them pole arrow posits or pole opposites, because they're poles. The city has all these poles that people are putting stickers on and graffiti. And I have very little of the, like I have a little bit of the buildings and the city behind the pole, but it's really sort of, I found that by doing this over the years, I can actually say, okay, I really want to focus on the pole and not, and have like the back part be a regular in focus photograph, but then where I want the sort of the glitch to come out. And it's really, like I said, it's a very physical experience, but so, yeah, I've been learning as I go ahead. And did I just share that or no? Oh my gosh, I don't think I shared it. I am so sorry. Did I show these? Or no?
The last couple, I don't think you shared. You shared
Yeah,
the
so
first few.
these are the polls that I've been able to shoot just in the past couple of days, and it's a new project. And I find that, like, the back this is the front of my house. Somebody spray painted on it, and this is a city pole. You can see little stickers, but the glitch is really. And here's again, this is my house on both sides, an actual photo, but then I could really actually control the glitch only where I want it. And I guess the one thing that I didn't show was the piece in the middle that I was so happy to wanted to share with everybody, which was this, that the 12-inch long waterfall that I was dancing on my toes while I was shooting and sort of singing this little song that helped me get it really controlled and tight. But all this I've learned just from doing it. Like, there's no real booklet or anything. So I think it's learning by doing.
Lee, you make these to print, and how large do you print some of them?
Well, one day I hope to show them their proper size, because full resolution, they're 50 inches tall, and some of them are like 14 feet. Like that last one that I was just showing you, this one is 12 feet by, this is 4 feet right here in height, and this is maybe 16 feet long. And the details are crazy. Like, there's so much detail. So when it's full res, I hope to show it. But even when I sell them to people for like 6 foot by 2 foot, you do get a lot of the details. You just don't get like as much as there is. And when I find with nature, and when you do it really controlled, you can get a lot more details. But yeah, these are crazy long. This one is got to be like 18 feet by 50. So as soon as I get a place where I can show pieces that big, I look forward to it. And every once in a while, somebody asks me if they can buy one, and they say they want it full resolution. And I'm like, okay, we can cut out a piece, which is, it's kind of like, in a way, this is like the opposite of, I'm not swinging a paint can or throwing ink, but I am throwing my cell phone and getting light into it. It's, instead of going out, it's the light is going into the camera. So, and it is very much, I love the fact that there's such an affinity with Pollock here, because to me, it's sort of like the opposite. But much like Pollock, he'd be like, okay, this piece, I'm gonna have this piece, and so the whole piece might be 16 feet long, but he might end up cutting a chunk. So when people say they want one, I ask, they want it like the full size, full scale, just shrunk down so that it can fit in their house? Or do they want to cut a piece out of it? Like, what's your favorite piece? And we look at it at like 100%. This is 100% right here. So like, do you want that piece? And that's actually, it's not even 100% because this one has been cropped. So yeah, like one of these pieces, 100% is here. So like, somebody might say, I want that part and I have room for 3 feet by 3 feet, and I'm okay with that. And I'll sign it 1 of 1 because I'll never print another one that size. But yeah, these were a thrill, because I really felt like I learned so much from, if you see, for like looking at the stuff that I did when I first learned that you can do this with the camera, to now, I feel like learning by doing, I really got to control it a lot better. Thanks. And 707, Anybody? Cynthia? Anybody want to show work? I'm not calling you out, Cynthia, but you know, if you wanted to show. Or David Bloom, Karen, anybody want to show some art? If not, well, Colin, what do we do?
Well, I think we're pretty good to wrap up at this point. You know, Lee, that work was very interesting, and I especially appreciate the comparison with Pollock in that, you know, it's he was sort of known as an action painter, and I could really see your work as sort of action photography in that, you know, you're moving the camera around to create the images and not just capturing it, you know, holding the camera still. So that's kind of an interesting parallel that you draw there. And you know, many thanks for moderating. You know, I hope that we do have more rotation with the moderators moving forward. You know, certainly it's something that you learn by doing, just like you did tonight. So it's not rocket science. You know, it's just kind of like coming up with an idea and sort of you know, helping the artists kind of you know, show their work around a concept. So I really appreciate that, and to all the artists who presented as well.
Let me inject something we talked about a long time ago. I mentioned Graham Nash, the singer, was a photographer, and he got one of the very first digital printing machines ever delivered in Los Angeles, and he took it apart, broke the warranty, and because he thought he could improve on it, and he put it back together. And when he ran out these prints of photographs he had taken, he got what are called glitches across the print, which he hated. I wanted to exhibit them. He wouldn't let me do it. But your work reminds me of those early images that I saw him do. And he didn't deliberately shake the printing machine. It was when he put it back together, he did something wrong, and it made these glitches, you know, which were absolutely beautiful images to look at. To me, to him, they weren't. It makes me wonder if if you put the two things together, put your photographs on a printer and somehow made the printer do glitches, what it would turn out like.
I wonder, you know, I've seen a lot of people doing glitch, like there's softwares that'll take your photos and glitch them. And I've seen that a lot. And every once in a while you hear somebody talk to me and they say, well, you know, I like glitch work. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Something that you said to me really struck a chord, because I've always been dealing with the concept of like digital algorithms and analog. When I was a VJ, I was an analog VJ, not a digital VJ, but I'd use digital imagery, and that whole thing. And then in this new world, there's so much generative work. And I remember asking during a workshop, during a presentation, is my stuff generative? Because there is an algorithm, and you said, no, they're events. And I don't know if you remember that, but I was like, that is awesome. Like, because somebody takes a picture, it's like 30 seconds, a 30th of a second, click, right? But I'm taking a picture and it's like, especially now, I'm holding the phone like, well, I've got this, I've got one of my phones has got, to keep it, because it's an old iPhone 4, but to keep it from falling apart, I have this a kitty cat. And the thing is that when I hold it right here, I'm right on the lens. So when I move it like this or like this, or, you know, I can keep it so that the camera is really still, but the movements, sometimes it's going this way and sometimes it's going this way. And the shot might take 3 minutes. So like somebody's going click, and that's a photo. I'm taking a photo and it's 3 minutes. So in terms of events, it's not like a birthday party or a baby getting born. You know, like a baby getting born takes, well, the whole birthing process could be hours, but the actual first breath isn't really that long. but it's so monumental. This isn't very long, 3 minutes, and it's really not monumental. But I still like the concept of events as opposed to generative and in a digital art world. And I thought that was really defining what you told me. I was like, that's what I've been looking for. I'm really grateful that you said that.
All right, so I think in the interest of time, we should wrap it up. But I appreciate you guys all presenting, and I guess we will stop recording in 3, 2, 1, and cut.